Do you feel like your life is just lines from the movies over and over again?
Well, you know, the weird thing is when I'll be in a traffic stop, you know, there's a convertible full of teenagers next to me. I'm just sitting there, you know, trying to find a good station on Sirius XM. And I go, yo, Kruger! Hey, yo, Freddy! You know, from the next car. And I'm always forgetting, because I'll go weeks without being recognized. And then I'll be in a coffee shop, and I'll be, you know, dipping my fries and ketchup and reading the paper or something, or walking the dog. And one person will come up to me, and then it's a dozen, you know, and it accelerates. So it's kind of hit and miss. When I'm traveling, it's even stranger because, you know, I've done, I guess, over 80 feature films now, and 4 TV series, lots and lots and lots of guest star roles. So I never know when CSI or Bones or Hawaii Five-0 or some TV shows being rerun in Seattle or in Dallas or somewhere. And so that gives you a kind of a recognition factor. Because maybe you were on, I don't know, Charm the night before. I had a Charm rerun on, and everybody saw it. They see me, you know, at the market or something. So that's sort of what happens to actors. And it's so, and now with the retro channels, for the first time in like 25 years, I'm getting like original Charlie's Angels residuals. I opened it up and I'm so happy it's 19 cents. But it's still, it's weird though, because even though it's only 19 cents on the residual, a lot of people watch or they're rediscovering some of those shows, you know, Police Story or whatever they are.
HBO Max right now is running the entire Dagger series, so it's a whole other generation of kids that are getting into it.
Well, we have some questions from
Yes, we're going to have a ton of questions. You guys go ahead and start lining up in the microphone, and we will get it started right away. And you go ahead.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Joseph.
Hey,
My first question is, how did you get the role of Freddy Krueger?
well, this is not the freshest Q&A answer we can get, but it's kind of cool. I had an old Datsun 2000, so that's like the car the Japanese bought from MG. It's like a little MG, and I had the roll bar on it, you know, wrapped with gaffer's tape, you know. And I got in that, and I went to the interview, and I've been surfing a lot that spring, and I was real tan, my hair was long and blonde and curly, and I looked in the rearview mirror and I said, man, I don't think this is what they want. They were looking for a really big stuntman. And I was busy starring my first television series. It was a big hit. And this little project fit in my schedule. And I was very curious about Wes Craven because I've been hanging out at the New Wave bar. You know, skinny ties, you know, big shoulders, big hair, 80s. New Wave, remember New Wave? But I had a crush on this little punk bartender girl. And on either end of the bar, there was a giant, rough, industrial television set, black and white. And they had clips of Eraserhead, David Lynch's film. And on the other one, they had clips from Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes by Wes Craven. After a couple of drinks, that starts to fuse. And so I really respected Wes, but I thought of Wes as kind of a dark angel, kind of a David Lynchian guy. I figured he might be a little Marilyn Manson, you know, maybe a little goth. So but I really thought he was a talent. I could see the talent that worked there. So I drive over to Deep Valley somewhere in my car, and I open the hood of my car, pop the hood, and I get the dipstick out, and a little grease off the dipstick. And I've got really fine hair. If I come out of the water, you know, you can see my skull. So I greased my hair back, my blonde curls to my head. And then I took some ash. My buddy, my wingman, he smoked a lot, and he left his cigarettes in the cigarette butts in my ashtray. So I took some of the cigarette ash. This is an old trick I learned in the theater, but ash is a really great shadow when you're doing makeup with a little bit of water. I'm just a little bit of spit, a little saliva, a little cigarette butt ash, and I sunk my, it sounds gross or ridiculous, but I put circles over my eyes, and they look natural. They look natural, like I've been up for a week or something. And I went into the interview, and I met Wes, and instead of, Marilyn Manson, there was this preppy Ralph Lauren, Don Quixote, 6'3", a gentleman and a scholar. And I played staring games with Wes. He had my big Robert Englund mouth shut. And I just listened to Wes like this. And I think that's how I got the part. Now, it may have been that I had a thin face and reasonably broad shoulders for my frame, and that when you put this prosthetics on me, the prosthetics on me with my body size look natural. A lot of actors, especially in Hollywood, have their heads are big for their body. Big, beautiful heads, don't get me wrong. Like your house, big, beautiful head. But when you put prosthetics on them, it looks too big. You know what I mean? It's out of ratio. So it could have been that simple, because they were worried about the makeup. Both Robert Shea, the producer for reruns, and Wes was really paranoid about the makeup on me. And so it could have been that simple. It also could have been Annette Bening, who had just put me through about 8 callbacks for National Lampoon's Class Reunion. And literally everybody in Hollywood was calling her up and saying, "Would Robert come back and do the screen test with me?" And I heard Annie Potts. I heard it from Ghostbusters. I heard that she said, "Can I audition with Robert again?" And what I did is I canceled myself out. I was literally up for every part of the movie. It was a male, and I didn't get any of them. And I think she felt bad because she brought me back too many times, and I kind of just negated myself by, watered myself down by being up for so many roles in that. And she really talked me up to Wes. So it may be that Annette Bening, the casting director in my corner, Annette Benson, sorry, not Annette Bening's the movie star. Annette Benson casting director, may have been that she really thoughtfully lined those doors. We shall never know. Wes says it's because I understood the movie and the concept. I think Wes might be being kind to me. Rest his soul. Another question.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next question. Over here.
Hey,
Speak up.
sorry, you scared me.
Excuse me.
Hi, my name is Joey. It's an honor to meet you. And my question was, one thing that I like about the Nightmare series is that Freddy's lore grows and we learn more about his backstory as the movies go on. So with the original movie, how much of that was already set in stone? And did you have any say-so on what his backstory was?
Now, the backstory is pretty simple. There's several theories about the first film and what it really means, because we shot several endings. But the backstory really simply is Freddy Krueger was a child killer. Not a child molester, a child killer. I think that makes him bad enough, right? You don't need to gild the lily here. He kills children, he's a pedophile, and he picks his nose. It's a child killer. And there's something poetic, darkly poetic about those words, child killer. It's almost like the name of a punk group. You could call them, tonight, in Orlando, at the Den, the child killers at 10 o'clock. There's something kind of darkly poetic about that, because, and metaphoric and thematic. If you're killing children, what are you doing? You're killing the future. So you have to look at it in a symbolic way. The Nightmare on Elm Street. For my generation, and some of you aren't in my generation, although not many, but even some of the generation behind me, we learned to read the book about a family, Dick and Jane, and father and mother, and a cat named Puff and a dog named Spot. And they lived in this perfect American white bread suburban life. And they lived on Elm Street. Wes is skewering that. Wes is saying it's the nightmare of suburban America. The America that was in the throes in the early 80s and the late 70s, terrible divorce rates, and the family structure was beginning to change severely. What else is Elm Street? It's the street in Dallas, Texas, where our beautiful President Kennedy was slain. Elm Street. So it has a symbolic meaning, just like childhood. So Freddy is the bad news that parents don't tell their children coming to fruition. And surviving Freddy is to be an adult, is to make that transition, the surviving role in all the films. And every film has a survivor role, whether it's Tina in Freddy versus Jason, or Heather Langenkamp playing down Nemesis in 1, 3, and 7. You know, there's always a survivor role, and our guest here this weekend will be Lisa Wilcox, who's sort of Alice in Nightmare Land. You know? And so that's really the backstory. He's a child killer. He goes up in front of a judge once he's caught, and he gets off. And Ivy lawyers get Freddy off. And the parents were disgusted with the way the law works. Sound familiar? The parents are frustrated, they become vigilante parents. 2 wrongs don't make right. They burn Freddy alive. He never goes all the way to hell. The elevator, much like the elevator here in the Hyatt Regency, stops. In a purgatory just south of Starbucks. And Freddy's operating from that purgatory. And if you were a relative of the vigilante parents, a child of the vigilante parents, and you hear about Freddy in the locker room or at a sleepover, you know, at a slumber party, if you hear about Freddy and you dream about him, he can weasel his way into your subconscious. And that's his revenge. That's about it. Oh, and it's just a wonderful time. Next question.
What was it like, whenever you were making the movie with Jason, what was it like?
Well, the guy who plays Jason, I'm sure a lot of you guys met, Ken Kirsinger, is great. Ken Kirsinger has been in more movies, probably, than every actor here today combined. Ken is a great stunt coordinator from Vancouver, Canada. Comes from a family of big, tall, everybody in the family is over 6 foot brothers, and they live in this beautiful little area south of Victoria on an island off of Vancouver. Ken now lives, I think he's on Granville Island in Vancouver, great little urban island with bridges. And Ken walked in, I think it was supposed to be Kane Hodder's role. Kane was waiting to negotiate his deal. Ken walked in applying for the job as stunt coordinator for Freddy vs. Jason, and he got the part because Ronnie Yu had always conceived of Jason as a junkie, and Ken's 6'7" or 6'5", and Freddy's a little junkyard dog. And Big Ronnie had seen a graphic novel or something of Jason where he was exaggeratedly tall. Anyway, because Ken's a stuntman, I felt really safe working with Ken as Jason. And you know, Freddy is afraid of fire. Jason's afraid of water. Camp Crystal Lake, all the backstory there. But I was doing a scene with Ken, and we were in a room that was on fire. And I'd done my stuff. I'd already done my side. The camera had already been pointing at me. And it turned around now and was pointing at Ken. So we've been in there for all of my side of the scene, 3 different setups, 3 different sizes of lenses of camera, you know, a couple of different angles. Now I'm done, and I'm kind of behind the camera, and it's Ken's turn to do his side. But this room, the set, had been on fire now for about 90 minutes. It was getting hotter and hotter. And if you know anything about fire, it heats up the oxygen. When there's less oxygen, it makes everybody a little dingy. So Ken's got his big close-up. And Ken's lovely. Ken's a good actor. Ken's going to come at the camera like John Wayne. You know, he's going to do his cool walk in Freddy. You know, it starts out and he's way back against the wall. You know, and I'm insulting Jason. You know, you punk-faced mama's boy or whatever. And he's coming at me with his machete. Well, he stood so long against the wall. The back of his costume got so hot, he started to smoke. Literally, like epaulets on fire on his shoulders. And I'm behind the camera and I'm going, and it looks great. Ken, But it was so strange. He's a stuntman. This guy's running fire extinguisher. That was like when he actually had more things happen to him than I did, and he was a stuntman. But yeah, it was fun. I love doing the water, the lake stuff. Coming out of the lake and landing on the pier. And I had a whole week doing underwater stuff with baby Jason. And they made me do it because I'm a surfer, I can hold my breath longer than a stuntman. So I did all the underwater stuff. But when you see people on fire flying through the air and getting lit, that's not me. It was so cold up there in Vancouver because we had the Jason's Crystal Lake location. It's Vancouver, Canada, and it's like snow flurries in the morning. I'm there during the snow flurries in the morning with damn makeup on. But I was able to hide a wetsuit under my sweater and under my baggy Freddy pants. And Ken was able to hide a really thin wetsuit under his outfit too. But Monica Keena has to be sexy in the Survivor girl. She can't have a wetsuit on. And Jason Ritter, he was just wearing a regular shirt. There was nowhere for him to hide a wetsuit. So the kids, every time they were in the lake or wet, we had to just throw them in a hot tub. We had a hot tub on the set. And so after a couple of takes, so Ken and I got a hot tub too. So it's Freddy, Jason, Monica, and Jake Wilson got a hot tub. We're freezing our butts off. Parts of my body have gone up inside the lid. It's cool. And but now there are Navy SEALs, French Canadian Navy SEALs, and they're wearing the 3/4-inch, perfect Navy SEAL wetsuit with footy species in them, and hands like the creature from the Black Lagoon. And they've got a hoodie that zips up, and all you can see are their eyes. They look like ninja terrorists. And they're in the water in case anything goes wrong, because some of the water's on fire and stuff. They got to protect the kids. Pretty soon, they're in the hot tub. I don't know why. They got wetsuits on, real wetsuits, serious Arctic wetsuits on. Then I realized they just wanted to be near Monica. Nothing like a wet survivor girl, right, boys? Yeah. Next question.
Good afternoon. My name is Isaiah, and my question is, Wes Craven is Jason said that he really enjoyed or would rather have the darker, more serious version of Freddy, like in Seven. And for your dramatic acting background, did that fill your cup up in Seven, or would you have preferred to continue to go straight the comedic route the entire way of the series?
Wes set it up so that Freddy was funny. Nightmare on Elm Street 1. He cuts his fingers off and they pus green liquid, right? And he cracks a joke. He sticks his tongue out of the phone. He takes Tina's face and puts it on and impersonates Tina. He's kidding around a lot in part one. And what happened is the audience loved that. They went crazy for it because it was a monster, a boogeyman with a personality. It also does something else. It allows you to laugh in a horror movie, which releases the tension. You know how people laugh nervously? Or you heard the term nervous laughter. Well, if you can get that nervous laughter out of your system in a horror movie, then we can set you up for a scare easier, because you got rid of that nerve. Otherwise, you just keep unrelenting gore and scare coming at you. Sooner or later, the audience will start laughing at the movie. They're laughing nervously. They just have to do something with their fear, and that's how it manifests. So Wes is very clever about that. We ran with that, and we probably jumped the shark a couple of times. Part of the problem was really good writers with Oscars, famous writers, wrote those movies, and they would write me a great one-liner, a great catchphrase. And lots of times the editors, when they were under a time restraint, would lean on the kind of percussive rim shot effect of having me do a kind of dirty, hairy one-liner at the end of the sequence, and gave them a natural way to edit, a button on that scene to have me say, "Welcome to prime time" or something, And so they would air that connection, and they did that a little too much. And sometimes we shot two different versions. I know Nightmare 4, I know we're having a reunion for Nightmare 4 here. Kincaid in the junkyard. Kenny Sagos. When I killed Kenny, I did one take as a kiss of death with Freddy, and I gutted him. And I put my hand behind his head, and I brought him in for a slow Freddy wanna suck face. But no joke, no line, just real slow and creepy. And then he just held onto my body and slowly dropped down, and I just looked down at him. I saw it, it was great. But they put a line in it. We put a line in there instead. They erred in the direction of the joke sometimes because it's that rim shot, that natural ending, that button for a scene. So we got a little carried away and relied a little too much on Sunday. But we returned to a lot of the darkness in part 7. I think, that's, if I could do it again, I like that, but I also understand how successful Freddy having a personality is and what that means. Freddy likes his work. He's unapologetic. He's not politically correct. He's on a full revenge motif. And he's not trying, if you're in a wheelchair, Freddy doesn't care. You're good enough for him to go after you. He's not making any distinctions, And I think that fans respect that and like that. I think fans that might be in a wheelchair respect it like that because I have actor friends, and they're often with various, disabilities, and they often aren't asked to play saints all the time. They want to play bad guys too, and it's sort of like Freddy is an equal opportunity killer. Next question.
What was your favorite part and guilt?
What was what? The first movie? Favorite film or first film?
Favorite film.
My favorite film, it's tricky, you guys.
Favorite kill.
Oh, my favorite kill. Interesting question for a child. Oh. Did you like it when you sucked the blood out of TV? I love the Tina. If I'm watching the movies, I think that the whole sequence with Tina and Amanda Lewis on the ceiling is pretty iconic and classic and disorienting. I also love what I was just talking about, the political correctness. I love that Freddy goes after the boy with the hearing aid, Carlos. You can hear a pin drop. I love that. I think that's a great imaginative sequence. And again, Freddy is an equal opportunity coach. That's probably my two favorite. Yes?
Could you ever be convinced to do another Nightmare on Elm Street?
Would I ever consider doing another one? Well, here's the problem, you guys. I'm an old dog, and I might have to wear some Spanx and take my ass. And I could probably, pull off one more, but I'd have to have a really good stunt double. I remember my friend Mark Singer, who's about the most fit actor I've ever worked with. And when he did Beastmaster, those stuntmen worked him. And he fell into that kind of macho doing all his own stuff. He told me I couldn't get out of bed on Monday morning, like playing football on a Sunday. He was just so black and blue. Stuntmen know how to measure that energy out differently and how to count, so they don't hurt themselves. They don't repeat their stunts as many times. So I would love to be invited when they finally sort everything out in the Nightmare universe between Time Warner and the Craven Estate and everything. I'd love to be invited to play like a cameo, maybe in Green Warriors. If they rebooted Green Warriors. The wonderful actress Priscilla Pointer, Amy Irving's brother, plays the therapist. The group encounter sequences. They're all having a common nightmare. They're all having dreams of Freddy. And she doesn't buy into that. She doesn't believe it. And I think it'd be fun as a cameo. There's a tradition of cameos in horror movies and in sequels and in franchises and fantasy films especially. There's a kind of history of cameos, this little link to the fans, as it were. And I would love to play that. That would be fun because it would be fun to see me playing somebody that doesn't believe in night characters. All right, next question.
So obviously, given
bloopers that happened backstage that you can remember, like anything that happened up and down?
Oh, there's lots. I mean, you have to understand, making a horror movie is silly. Because you'll see me looking all butch and tough from here up, you know, Freddy with a light in my eye, you know. I bring my special glove that catches the light up high, and I know it looks cool, you know. Down here, there's 4 guys that look like Muppeteers. They're wearing all black, they got their hand up my pants. You know, they got wires in me, hydraulics in me to make a goat ladder expand my head, you know. My chest of souls, flip the bird, or whatever. And so it's always silly, so we're always cracking jokes. We're always kidding around because you have to get the joke out of it. So it's not in your head when you're doing the scene. You gotta kind of purge yourself of all those jokes that you're thinking about. You know, like there's a guy with his hand up my crotch and he's running the wire down my navel and between my legs, and I have to say, we have to stop eating like this. You gotta get that joke out. You know? And you know, you're trying to walk cool, you know, you're trying to walk really cool in the shot. But right here, you're stepping over 2 guys, you know. Dolly train, so it's silly. There's a lot of elements in horror movies. But I can't remember any really fun. One of the ones that I like, and this is sort of an adult pun joke, but they say, you know, people are pun are smart, so, and I know this guy's smart. But Wes Craven on the set of Nightmare 7, we had a sequence with the little boy, and we're down in Freddy's Purgatory, and we had the sequence with the snakes, and we had an albino python, and we had a bunch of eels. And we were trying to get this shot. We didn't want the kid to be afraid, but we had to, you know, we wanted him a little afraid. And we wanted to get him near the, you know, so he looked like he was in jeopardy with all the eels, and you're supposed to think they're snakes. And we have a thing in Hollywood where if you go over a certain amount of hours, I think it's 6, we have to be fed. Or they make a note, and we all get a little extra money at the end of the week because they didn't feed us on time. And that's called a meal penalty. We weren't getting this shot with the little boy and the albino snake and me and Heather and all of these eels that are white and oiled up and greasy, you know, putting the little boy in jeopardy. And Wes is upset, he's turning his head on. Wes says, "We don't get this shot, there's going to be an eel penalty." That's the kind of humor that's on this set. That's the kind of guy Wes is and how great Wes is. Because he relieved everybody's tension because we were rushing and we were trying to get the shot. And Wes is so clever. You know, and things like that puts everybody at ease, and you can go back to work, and somebody has to milk the python. Okay. Next question.
Hi, Robert. My name is Tabitha. So it was recently announced that you're going to be in Stranger Things season 4, which is awesome. What is the difference between horror and MTV4 versus you filming something like Stranger Things, like the modern day horror?
Well, the first thing that's different, you guys, is the quality. And you can literally do anything now. I used to pitch movies as a director and other people that I was going to be in, movies that I would be participating in as an actor with other producers. And we always tried to tell them we could do it cheaper, you know, or we could change this. Now, they don't want to hear that anymore. And when you're in the room, when you're in the office, because you think you can do anything, literally anything you can imagine can be done now on film, and that's a good thing. And I'm constantly blown away and surprised by effects and visions that I see in the new cinema. However, there's a thing that happens also, which is people keep thinking they can fix it with CGI. You know, we'll enhance it, we'll use more CGI. And what happens, not all stories can take that much computer-generated images, because then it's like watching a cartoon. Because we know it just starts happening. So I love it when it's selective, you know, when they're selective with it and discerning with the use of it. So that is a difference. And it's also, they're using more cameras now than ever before. I think I can say this without getting in trouble, but I was doing the scene on Stranger Things, and I literally did a couple of takes, and there was a camera I didn't even know was there. I mean, I knew about 2 cameras, but there was a 3rd camera I didn't even know was there. Or maybe it was the 4th camera. you know, and I remember telling the director, Sean, I'm so ashamed, you know, you're up in, you know, starring in movies since 1974, and it's 73 actually, and I didn't know there was a camera shooting. There's a whole other camera hidden in there that I didn't know. But that's really different now too. You know, you have that many cameras around. I've been on sets with GoPro cameras stuck everywhere, so that you can literally think here. I can think like this, but the camera would catch my reaction. You know, or I can walk over and be on stairs, looking down some stairs and holding onto the railing, and think this way. And there's a camera down there catching my thinking. You know, my thought, my decision to grab the gun, or whatever I had to go through as an action. So that's very different. Requires you to not only be more aware and cognizant of that technology, but also there's that moment you have to abandon it, you know, so that you can just concentrate and protect yourself and your performance and your space. But you know, there's great horror being made every day, and you guys, you know, what happens? We get a little lazy. We rely on that pop-up, you know, on the internet, or that really good trailer on TV or in the movie theaters to tell us what's happening. And yet, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not getting hyped as much as the big stuff. And a lot of the big stuff's great, don't get me wrong. But there's these little gems all the time. And I just hope we're all discovering movies like The Witch with Anna Taylor-Joy, and movies like Midsummer, which is in that weird segment of horror movies, that kind of, oh gosh, what was the original? The one with Christopher Lee. The Wicker Man genre. I'm a sucker for it, you know, and so when I saw Midsummer, I just, you know, it was like, I was hooked. And both those movies have two of the best actresses in the world. You know, Midsummer is Florence Pugh. And she and David Harbour, as far as I'm concerned, stole the movie. And then Anna Taylor-Joy from Queen's Gambit in The Witch. Oh my gosh, she's just amazing. And otherworldly. So there's tons of stuff like that. And then there's big hit sequels that are great. I really think that the criticism is not valid. I thought that Quiet Place 2 was really extraordinary. And I love that actress that held it together, you know, besides Emily, Be Still My Heart, Emily Blunt. But you know, the child is so remarkable in that movie, you know, and a really good cast. Just a really fresh, I thought it was much fresher than people. And I love the consolidated previously on The Quiet Place. I love that opening because they summed it all up in a prequel. They got Ryan up to speed as a prequel. I think Krasinski's really a talented director. And then we have also, you guys, I hope you're supporting all the Jordan Peele work too. You know, he's just really. So there's good stuff happening all the time. And old and new, and hardcore, gore, and splatter, you know, and there's real fun stuff. Now I've got a new word. I love the Tarantino word for that genre at that moment in time, because it widens it up, it opens it up more. But I love the grindhouse. Good grindhouse, you know. I don't know if you guys have seen Bone Tomahawk. That's my Western horror, grindhouse that I love. That's another one that slipped under the radar, you know. And that's a smart. That movie's also deconstructed Howard Hawks, you know. There's a lot going on in that movie. But the first time I saw it, I jumped out of my chair. You know what I'm talking about. I won't say the word cannibal, but I won't say the word. All right, question.
About 10 years ago, we had this Star Wars celebration. You mentioned from our panel that you guys used to be roommates at the beginning of your acting career. Kind of curious what it's like with Freddy Krueger and
No, guys, here's the true story of that. And I hesitate to even answer this question anymore because the internet, you know, gets everything wrong. It's like that bad Dixie Hut in summer camp. What's that big telephone? at the end of the circle, it comes back, and it's completely wrong. No, Mark Hamill wasn't my roommate. My roommate was Jan Fisher, my girlfriend. She wrote Lost Boys. And she and I and Mark were all friends, good friends in Hollywood. The story is a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood story about a moment in time in the 70s. And I offer it as that, as a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood story. Mark was always at our house because he was starring in a television series at the bottom of the street, CBS Mary Tyler Moore Studios, the Texas Wheelers with Gary Busey, and the great Western actor with the funny eye, Jack Elam. Great actor. He got 1,000 episodes of Westerns on television and movies. And I think he's in I Knew. Anyway, Jack Elam, the father of Gary and Mark, wonderful show. So Mark was over all the time because he didn't want to get stuck in rush hour traffic, going back to Hollywood on the freeway. We used to get this tradition of watching back-to-back the old Bob Newhart show reruns and Mary Tyler Moore in reruns because we hadn't seen them originally, all of them. And Mark was now working for Mary Tyler Moore's company. And so Mark was over all the time. And Mark was a TV star, big star. And in TV, you make a lot more money than you do in movies. And so Mark would bring the beer, and Mark turned me on to Monty Python. He turned me on to the Kinks, the musical group. He was a terrific friend back then. And it was a moment in our careers, pre-Freddy and pre-Luke. And I wanted desperately to be in Apocalypse Now. And American Zoetrope, Francis Ford Coppola's production company, they had contract players. Harrison Ford was one, Freddie Forrest, Cindy Williams, one of the Vernon Shirley wives. And I begged and begged my agent, and I finally got my interview for Apocalypse Now. And I walk in, and I wanted to play the cook. The guy, the line, the famous line, "You effing tiger!" Apocalypse Now. But I was too young. And I'd gone to the thrift store, and I bought an old faded green military shirt, and I had a pair of green, tight, faded Levi's, military. I had a pair of military boots on, and I went in. I wore a pair of dog tags, my father's dog tags, and I went in, and they said, no, we've already passed that role. And they talked to me for a while about playing the surfer. And they thought I was a little too old. That's because I was dressed old. I would have gone looking younger. And but the way I was dressed intrigued somebody there. And they ran me across the hall, George Lucas's movie. And we no one knew anything about it. All I knew was that George Lucas is one of my favorite directors because American Graffiti is about my time. It's my generation. And I loved American Graffiti. I worshiped it. It's a perfect movie. And so I said, well, hell yes, I'm the producer of Apocalypse Now. Marched me across the hall. And all they did, and get this straight up, I was never up for Luke Skywalker. I was never up for anything. So they just took my Polaroid, right? Because they were deaf. They were having trouble with how do we go with Han Solo? Do we go older? I think they wanted Tom Selleck at one time, like a really cool old uncle that gives you a joint at Thanksgiving. For Luke, the man of the skies, the Millennium Falcon. Or maybe he can be closer to Luke's age. They didn't know. This is early on. They just took a Polaroid of me, I think, with a lampshade off a lamp. Probably the worst shot of my giant roller that I've ever had. But anyway, I saw in the outer office the audition scene for Luke Skywalker. And you see that this is way back now. So the words Luke Skywalker, what a cool name, right? It's like one of the coolest names in the history of cinema. So I saw that, and it got my attention. I'm already done. I'm out the door. But I read the scene, and I looked at it, and I thought, hey, I know it's right for this part. I drove my car over to Hollywood Hills to my cool apartment, walked up to the door. There's a pair of Acme boots in front, and I thought, I know Mark's over, because he could always take his boots off. And even my front porch, I walked in, Mark's on the couch, halfway through behind him. watching Bob Newhart. I told him, I said, George Lucas, you know, we love George Lucas. It's with this new space movie, you know, and that's all. That's what happened. I told Mark about the project. Now, his agent says she already had him submitted for it, and she may have. I just don't think he knew about that yet. Because he got on the phone to call her that afternoon. When Mark leaves the Bob Newhart show, you know he's serious. Cracking up beer. Let's watch Gary. Okay.
All right, I'm so
Yes.
sorry, this is gonna be the last question.
The last one better be good.
Questions on?
I recognize a fellow lizard over there.
Speaking of which, it's been almost 40 years since we first aired. And I'm just wondering, for you personally, do you look back on that time as really fond of nowadays?
I was a movie actor all through the 70s, from 73 till about 80, 81. I was almost exclusively movies. I think I did 12 or 15 movies. And I was known and established in Hollywood. And if I went out to a restaurant or somewhere or I traveled on location, people gave me that look like, hey, you're that guy. Yeah, I'm that guy. Or I went to high school with you. But I would get somebody to buy me a drink, get a free beer. You know, and that was great. Shot of Bushmills, I'm happy. I got recognized. You know, one of my movies was on TV last night. I had a new movie out. But no one knew who I was. When I did V, it was an international hit as well as the rest of it. And everybody learned my name almost overnight. They put my name, my real name, to my face. And I can't tell you how important that is in terms of a career for an actor. You know, when that happens. And the other thing was that because V was international and because V was science fiction, it speaks this sort of international language of cinema. So I probably owe a guy in Tokyo and a guy in Rome and a guy in Spain half my career because they dubbed me so well in those markets. But that shows another little one in Europe as well. And it's just life-changing to go from being, did I have a high school with you? To being able to do movies all around the world. And it's a great, great gift. And V was the beginning of that for me. It really opened that door to being an international actor. Things get slow for me in Hollywood. I can run off into a movie in Bulgaria, or Romania, Italy, Spain. You know, I've worked all over the world. And it's fun, especially when you get older, to travel and learn from travel. That when I go back to places I've been before, they remember me, and I remember a really cool restaurant we turned me on to, or the beach that no tourists go to, or the lake that nobody knows about, you know, with the chalet on the end of it that you can stay at. So it's just been this great happy accident and gift to my career.
Thank you.
We're going to have one come around the extra station. We're going to turn around this phone. Get the house, please. Good to see everyone. Pretty good looking dress today.
Oh, it's this one.
We're going to take this one.
It's the Oscar shot. We need Ellen DeGeneres.